All right, this is Mr. Wyrick, and I'm just going to go through this Unit 2 retake study guide review thing with you real quick. So the special right triangles are on here, the trig ratios are on here. This is the big part. This is what you really need, and the Pythagorean Theorem. So on this first one, it says Pythagorean Theorem. So remember, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. This is going to be 2 squared plus x squared is equal to 5 squared. That's going to be x squared plus 4 is equal to 25. So x squared is going to equal 21. So x is going to be the square root of 21, and you'll reduce that as much as you possibly can. On number 2, well, I don't think we can reduce that one at all. Then we've got, on this one, it's going to be 14 squared plus 48 squared is equal to x squared. Just remember, which one is your hypotenuse, which ones are the legs, because the legs squared equal the hypotenuse. So this one, 14 squared is 196, 48 squared, I don't even remember. We're going to add those together, and you can probably factor out some 4s, some 2s, maybe an 8 from the answer and reduce that radical. I'm just going to kind of guide you, but I'm just going to keep going. If a 45-45-90 triangle has a hypotenuse length of 9, that means that these two sides are both exactly the same, x and x, because that's how 45-45-90s work, and this is 9. If you look up here, it should be the hypotenuse is the leg times the square root of 2, so we would just need to take this and divide it by the square root of 2, and honestly, you can leave it as that, and it will be good. Find the values of x and y. Again, this is a 30, 60, 90. The hypotenuse is twice the short side. So this short side over here, y, should be 8 square root of 3, because we're just dividing by 2. And then the short side times the square root of 3 equals the long side. So we multiply 8 square root of 3 by the square root of 3. So this one over here is going to be 24. Explain the ratio. Express the ratio as a fraction and as a decimal. I will even let you cut out the decimal part. I'm not as worried about that. The sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse. So if it's the sine of L, here's L. The opposite side is 3. The hypotenuse is 5. The cosine of L is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. The adjacent side to L is going to be 4. The hypotenuse is 5, so this is 4 over 5. And then the tangent of J, tangent is the opposite over the adjacent, so opposite of J is this 4, and then adjacent to it is the 3, so this is 4 over 3 for our opposite over the adjacent. On the flip side here, find the value of x, round to the nearest tenth. Because we have the adjacent side, we're looking for the hypotenuse. This is going to be cosine. So this is cosine of 63 degrees is equal to the adjacent side of 15 square root of 3 over the hypotenuse of x. Because the x is on the bottom, we would swap these. So this is going to be x is equal to 15 square root of 3 over the cosine of 63. I don't have access to my calculator right now. Do make sure you're in degrees. You should be able to get your answer from that. On this one, find the value of x, round to the nearest. This is going to be sine of 38 because we have the opposite side over here. That opposite side is x, but it's what we're working with, and the hypotenuse is 20 square root of 2. If they'd have given us this side instead of this side, we would have had opposite and adjacent. We would have used tangent. If they would have given us this side for x instead of this side for x, we would have had adjacent and hypotenuse. So we would have used cosine. It's important to know how those ratios fit together. So this one, because the x is on the top, we're going to take 20 square root of 2, and we're going to multiply it by the sine of 38. Make sure to use your parentheses where you need to. Don't let that sine of 38 end up under your square root. Use a calculator to find the measure of angle t to the nearest tenth. This is the angle. We have the side across from it. We have the side that's adjacent to it. This would be the hypotenuse. So the tangent of theta, that's always the angle we don't know, is equal to the opposite of 8 over the adjacent of 12. So we're going to use theta is equal to the arctan. either arctan or tan raised to the -1 is how we're going to use that of 8/12. And again, nearest 10th is 1 decimal place. Nearest 10th up here, 1 decimal place. On this one, angle T, if we look, we don't have the opposite side. We have the adjacent, we have the hypotenuse. So the cosine of theta, which is there at angle T, is equal to the adjacent side of 11 over the hypotenuse of 23. So the angle is equal to the arc cosine to the -1 of 11 over 23. Then this last one here, word problem. 2 water slides are 50 meters apart on level ground. From the top of the taller slide, you can see the top of the shorter slide at an angle of depression of 15 degrees. If you know that the top of the other slide is approximately 15 meters above the ground, how far above the ground are you? Round to the nearest 1/10 of a meter. Couple things here that are pretty important to remember. You want to make this into a triangle. And because of how triangles and right angles work, this angle down here is 15. You're trying to find this value here, and we know that this is 50. So in this case, it would be the sine of 15 is equal to x, well, gosh, I guess we should call this one h, is equal to h, the height, and then that's going to be over 50. If I could get my paper to sit still. There we go. Now, once you find that, remember we made a triangle here, so this 15, we're going to need to add back in, so that h plus 15 is going to equal x, the full height of that slide, and again, round to the nearest 10th using your calculator. Hopefully that helps you. Good luck.